Right now, we are very fortunate to have in the studio right now a local actor and creative director of the Great Escape Stage Company in Marshall, Randy Lake. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
I'm great. It's nice to see you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. The Great Escape has gone through a lot of changes in the past year.
Definitely.
And a new home, a new theater. We're going to tell people about that, and a new show that opens, tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yes.
We're going to talk about that, too. And I imagine you're burning the candle at both ends right now.
Yeah, I believe there's just one big long candle. There's no ends.
But just a little bit about yourself. I know you're from Marshall.
From Marshall, born and raised there, grew up there, did a lot of theater in the area. I moved away and lived in New York for about 21 years. I moved back to the Marshall area about 10 years ago and started the Great Escape Stage Company. I had a little different name at the beginning, but eventually we got it changed to Great Escape, and we've been in existence for about 6 years now.
And just what exactly, I mean, there are a lot of different types of community theater, professional theater. How would you describe the Great Escape Stage Company?
I'd say we are a professional theater with a community theater aspirations. We encourage locals to be part of our process. We're dependent upon volunteers and people who want to come down and help, but we also have a commitment to a higher standard as far as production values and that kind of thing go. So we've been around for, like I said, 6 years, and what we are is a black box theater, which a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's basically a big black room, and we reconfigure the space for every show, so the audience is never quite sure where they're going to sit or where the stage is going to be at, but we find the best way to tell the story within the space.
And, of course, you opened, as you mentioned, 10 years ago, and it was a completely different space. Still in downtown Marshall on Michigan Avenue.
Yep, it was a tiny little space. Anybody who came to see us there, I think, would still be amazed that we were able to do the shows that we did there. We did about 50 productions in that tiny little 18 by 30-foot space.
The old dry cleaner.
The old dry cleaners built, the Heritage Dry Cleaners.
Yeah, it was a corner of Eagle and in Michigan there,
Avenue,
right across from the Stagecoach and Schuler. So
exactly.
A nice little location there, but really any place in downtown Marshall is a great location.
It is. And we last year decided we were having some growing pains, so we looked around and we found a beautiful building at 110 East Michigan. It used to be the old Keystone Architecture and Antique building, and we bought it last year, gutted it back in January and February, started rebuilding, and we reopened in July.
How does an organization like that pull off something like that, buying a really great big downtown space and converting it into a black box theater?
It came about, one of our board members had thought we should look at different buildings around town, and it ended up being that our mortgage payment was less than our rent payment because we were renting the other space. So the numbers crunchers worked their magic, and we found out that we could actually afford to buy this building. So we've also had wonderful support from the community and from our volunteers through fundraising campaigns this year to be able to do what we've needed to do. The miracles have kind of fallen into place each time we've needed money. It's happened to be there. So
now, when you compare the old theater down at the corner of Eagle in Michigan to the current space, I mean, how much bigger is the overall current space?
I wish I knew the square footage of the building. I know our theater itself is 32 by 35. So that's twice the size of our old space as far as performance-wise.
And the old space, that was pretty much everything.
That
really.
was everything.
I mean, there wasn't any storage area to speak of.
There was no lobby to speak of.
No dressing room. One tiny bathroom. Now you've got it's a beautiful space. I mean, my goodness, the first step was what? Gutting the whole thing.
Yes, and that was fun, actually, to be able to take down what was in there. We were pleased and excited to discover that there's the original tin ceiling that runs through the entire first floor is still there. It's in great shape. We left it. The wood flooring that's there, you'll see it in the lobby in the front of the building, but that runs all the way through the building as well. So the bones of the building were in great shape. Currently, when we opened in July, it was still a little rough, but we needed to get back up and getting productions going. But for this particular show, they've really concentrated on getting the lobby done. So we actually have a full refreshment area now and box office, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Decorated for the holidays.
Decorated for the holidays.
Wow.
It used to be I was kind of a one-man band, and I now have a complete orchestra doing their stuff, and it's wonderful.
And speaking of the orchestra, you actually have a spot for the orchestra now.
Yes, we
if you were going to use one, and an entire downstairs basement area for storage, rehearsal, whatever you need.
Exactly. That's what we're calling phase 2 of the project. We will hopefully be doing that this winter, of setting up the dressing rooms and the storage and the rehearsal space down in the basement.
Wow. And then there are upper floors to the building.
There are. We have 2 large spaces on our second floor, which are currently being rented. We have a photographer in one of the spaces and an artist in the other. Down the road, I hope neither one of them are listening, but down the road we're hoping to get those spaces back at some point. But right now those renters help us pay our mortgage, so we're very happy to have them.
That's great. You just need to stop by the Great Escape Stage Company just to see what has transformed there.
Sure.
Because it's so different than the old Keystone architectural building. And if you'd never been in there, I mean, what was that business? I mean, it was basically if you needed an old door for an old house or an old heat register.
Yeah, Denny Hughes, who ran it, I think he's basically a salvage nut. He would buy the strangest things to resell. He had a big box of a big trunk of marbles, all green glass marbles. And so when we bought the building from him, it took him about 3 months just to clean the place out. He came back just recently and kind of walked through, and he said, "I didn't realize I sold you such a big building."
I went to see him a couple of years ago. Somebody had given me an old desk, and it needed a skeleton key, and it didn't have one.
Sure.
So I went in to see Denny, and he brings out this big box just full of skeleton keys, and he starts picking through. It's probably this one, and it was.
and when we bought the building from him, he gave us a box of keys. He's like, "These are the keys to all the doors of the building, but I don't know which one goes to where." So we've had done a little detective work to make sure we get in all the doors.
Probably you'll use them as props in some show or another. So this current show, A Christmas Memory, is what? How many shows have you done in the new space now?
We opened with Miracle Worker in July, and we did, I think we've done 3 or 4 since that point. And then this is the finisher for 2017. Christmas Memory is a show that we did a few years ago in our old space. For the holiday season, and our audiences really responded to it. It's a wonderful family musical without being too sentimental or coy or saccharine or anything like that. It's based on a Truman Capote short story that a lot of people are familiar with, and I believe there was a movie of it back in the 60s, possibly.
Really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. And Truman Capote actually narrated the movie. So it's an interesting. I think you can catch things on YouTube of that particular movie, but it's just a wonderful, evocative time set in the 30s when he was a boy and he lived with some older relatives.
Talking with Randy Lake from the Great Escape Stage Company in Marshall about their show that opens tomorrow. It's called A Christmas Memory. I talked a little bit about it earlier in the show today, and I mentioned that it was young, as you just did, young Truman Capote. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression of the story was that his folks were kind of jet setters who just couldn't be bothered with a child.
That's exactly it. I think he mentions in the show that they had a very bitter divorce, and during the midst of the divorce, they decided to plunk him down with some older cousins. They were actually cousins of his, although they were very, very much older. 2 spinsters and a bachelor brother, basically, down in Monroeville, Alabama. And he grew up in that household, pretty much. He considered that his family more than his mother and father. And amazingly, his next-door neighbor there was Carson McCullers, who went on to write To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah. Harper Lee.
Harper Lee, yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah, Harper Lee.
And they were friends who wrote stories as kids together and told stories. They actually developed their writing skills because of their friendship, probably.
Exactly, and it's mentioned in the show. Harper Lee actually appears as a character.
Really? Yeah. So you have obviously a very young Truman Capote. What is he, like 8 or 10 years old in the show?
I believe he's 10. We have Grant Rupp, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's 13. Mm-hmm. He's almost a little too tall for the role, but he's wonderful in the role, so we used him.
Yeah, those young actors always play younger than they really are.
Exactly. And then a young lady named McKenna Gronvelt, who is playing Harper Lee.
Okay. And tell us about the rest of the cast.
We've got a wonderful actress named Debbie Culver.
Oh, she is wonderful. She's actually my wife. Yeah,
she is. She's recreating her role. When we did it a few years ago, she played Sook, his cousin that he's closest to. And she's coming back and recreating that this year. And then we have Eleanor Marsh from Marshall, who's playing the other spinster sister, Jenny. And my brother, Tim Lake, who actually played, we have in the show, there's a young Truman Capote named Buddy, and then there's the adult Truman Capote, older Buddy. And my brother Tim played older Buddy before, but he's actually playing Seabone, the older cousin, this time around.
That's an odd name.
Seabone, I know, but I think it's a very southern kind of thing.
Oh,
Seabone,
okay.
Seabone Falk. And then Carlin, thank you. Carlin Kernish from Albion is playing the adult Buddy role.
Some of you listening may know of his theatrical connection to Lakeview High School, where his mother taught for many years.
Exactly, and he's worked a lot with the What I Do Theater here in Battle Creek as well. And then the last cast member is a wonderful woman from Albion, Marquetta Frost, who I think a lot of people know. She does a lot of stuff with the 4-H over in Albion, and it's the first time we've had a chance to get her on our stage, and she's a delight. So
wow, look forward to that. So you've got some cast members who did it the last time that you did the show at the old space, and then some new ones as well, and your brother Tim playing a different role this time.
Exactly.
This show, I think you were the first theater company to do this, weren't you, in Michigan?
We were. We premiered it in Michigan, and I believe we're still the only theater to have done it in Michigan. I searched over the records for the last couple of years, and it doesn't look like anybody else has taken up the mantle, and I'm shocked by it because it's such a wonderful musical.
It really is. The music is fabulous. The story is very, very touching and very interesting, and it's one of those diamond in the rough shows, I think, that you hope when you go to see live theater, you hope it's one of those diamond in the roughs that, I haven't heard much about this show. I hope it's really good. It really is.
Yeah. It's interesting. The idea of doing a show at Christmas time has kind of gained popularity over the last 10 years or so. But a lot of ones that people think of, A Christmas Story, the musical, or Elf, the musical.
Christmas Carol. How many times can you do that?
Big productions. And for smaller spaces like ours, it's hard to find really wonderful shows to do at this time of year. And this one is tailor-made for a theater like us. So,
and anything different? Obviously, you did a different set than the old space because you've got a different canvas to work with.
Yes.
What will we see when we come into the theater, into the Black Box Theater at Great Escape Stage Company for the first time?
The theater itself, this time around, the audience is sitting 3/4 around what I call a thrust stage. So we've got, it's hard to describe. It's based on the idea of what we did before, but basically enlarged and enhanced. One of the things the audiences, I think, our supporters really worried about when we moved to our current space was they were worried they'd lose the intimacy of our theatrical experience. Because in our old space, you were right there with the actor. And we haven't lost that. That's one of the things I really like about our new space is that we're able to have a little more elbow room and a little more breathing room, but you're still close to the actors. We don't need to have them amplified. You can hear them, you can see them, and you're part of the action.
And I think the law helped you out on that one, too, because I happen to know that a lot of performance areas, if you get to a certain size, a bunch of fire marshal laws and all kinds. I mean, you got to put in $1 million sprinkler system, you know.
Exactly.
So you could seat maybe 200 people, but if you had 201, you'd have to spend $1 million.
Exactly.
For instance.
And I think the cutoff was like 125, possibly. For this production, we seat, I think, 70.
Okay.
So it's still a very intimate production. For Miracle Worker back in July, I think we had 80. And to talk on that, we had a fundraising campaign recently to replace all of our theater chairs. Anyone who's been to our theater knows that the chairs aren't all that comfortable. Well, the new ones aren't here yet. They're coming in right after the show closes. So
you got
this
one
will
in
be
the lobby, right?
Yes, So you can see what it's going to be if you come to see the show. But after this year, this production, we're retiring the old chairs and putting the new chairs in.
They're not bad. I've always been comfortable. Tell us what nights, what times now for this show, and how do we get tickets?
Well, the show opens tomorrow night, Thursday night the 7th, and we run 2 weekends, a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. So we run from the 7th through the 17th, and you can get tickets by calling the box office number at 269-781-2700.
And after this show, what's next for Great Escape Stage Company?
We are hoping to be able to announce the entire 2018 season in the next week or so. It's all picked. We've got about 8 main stage productions. We're doing a drama slam every month, and what that is we take a script, cast it, and the actors have one night to rehearse the show and one night to perform it. So we've had a couple this year, and the last one we had sold out. We were shocked at how much people love what we do with that. We're also doing some special events this coming year. We've got a couple of our popular radio shows coming up. John Sherwood put something together called Sherlock by Wireless, which is old Sherlock Holmes radio stories. We're also doing an 80th anniversary of the War of the Worlds broadcast in October.
Neat.
We've got a group from Kalamazoo called 50 Shades of Shakespeare coming in February for our Valentine's Day event. And we've got some other neat things coming on. So we usually have a couple things going on each month.
Great things are happening. Great Escape Stage Company in Marshall, downtown Marshall at, what's the address again?
110 East Michigan Avenue.
110 East Michigan. Randy Lake, thanks for joining us this morning. Break a leg.
Thanks.